I've always dreamed to be on TV and to actually do a chat show, you know, something like, you know, sort of an evening with Marjorie Brooke Williams, actually, not Michael Parkinson, but an evening with Marjorie Brooke Williams and Judith Denton.
Yeah.
Hello, Judith.
Hi.
Okay, all right, I'd like to just start by saying that I was really privileged to be asked to come along tonight and to talk to you about your book. But even more joyous and privileged because I've known you for 6 years, but there's many people here who've known you for much, much longer and been a part of your journey and seen your journey. But I think the recent journey is really important because I've seen the difference that Judith has made with children who are beyond our reach. Because for a number of years, probably about 10 years, I've worked with children who are in care as an advisory teacher and then later as an educational consultant. And the titles keep changing, children in care, looked after children. And actually a friend of mine tonight from Barking and Dagenham actually spoke to me about, and you're there, Lincoln? Yes, and we've worked together, so advisory teacher, social worker, and we've been so frustrated over the years about how we can reach our young people. And there was nothing there that was different, that there was nothing there that would empower our young people to, you know, to change, to encourage them to believe in themselves until you came along with your Transformed You program, which actually showed and demonstrated very clearly to me and to Lincoln that change was possible. And you have that ability, Judith, to bring about change and raise the spirits of our children. So, brings me nicely on to your book.
Yeah.
So, I have prepared some questions here. And I'd like to start off actually, because it's a big challenge, you know. I mean, I want to know what inspired you to write your book.
Where do I start? I didn't know I was going to write a book, but I was brought up in church, so you have people who we say have the prophetic voice that will sometimes come and say to me, you know, you need to write a book. And one of those people are in the audience tonight, which is Aikisha. If she wants to wave. I remember I was in Westfield a few years ago having dinner with Donna. We was out with my best friend Donna, and I bumped into Aikisha. She goes, I had a dream that you wrote a book. And I was like, oh God, here we go. Okay, so okay, yeah, fine. And then I think those words that people would say to me just stuck with me, but I didn't know what I was going to write about or when I would need to write. And then it's not until I started working through the Transformed You, the program that I set up and started to work, I began to see things that I thought weren't right for our children in care. And I needed to say how my journey was and also say what changes needed to be made. And that was when foster care and me, then I knew exactly why I needed to write, to inspire the kids that I mentor and I will be mentoring, and also to have a voice, because I can't sit with every social worker or every foster carer or every looked after or every advisory teacher. So I thought if they could get my book, then I need to say something and they need to hear me. And that's what inspired me to write the book.
When I read your book, what I was really impressed about was, if we look at the first part of the book about how you came into care, what I was really pleased about was the way that you told your story, but you told it in a way that didn't, I suppose, cause people to pity you.
Yeah.
So please, can you tell me about how you came to write what you did? Because obviously it was painful and it was difficult.
Yeah.
So tell me about the process there, the writing process.
Yeah. Well, if I go back a bit, I don't think that the writing process could have started unless I had gone to counselling. Because if I had not gone to counselling and made peace with my past, then there's no way I could pen that.
And I'm going to be a bit particular, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, did you go to counselling, or did you engage in therapy? Because
Oh, it was talking therapy. Yeah, so just to be clear, talking therapy. So it was there that I began to make peace. Because in the book, it talks about how I had the breakdown, went into crisis, and then it was after that I began to think about my past. And growing up in care, I blocked that out. And so going through therapy, after coming out of hospital, I became face-to-face with my journey. And so that helped me to see the positive side of my journey. Because if I hadn't gone through talking therapy, then there's no way. Well, I probably could have written a book, but it probably would come from a negative and a broken space. But I needed to be healed. So the healing process was through the talking therapy, which allowed me to see the positive side of my journey. And that helped me to be able to write my story in a positive light. And also because working with, as you know, working with looked after children or care leavers, they see that care is a dead end. They think it's a prison sentence. They always tell me, oh, social services have messed up my life, stuff like that. But I wanted to give the journey a positive sort of spin so that they could see hope and have hope. And I would be that hope for them.
so it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you wrote, I'm focusing on the first part of the book, in a reflective manner.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's really important, what you've said there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you weren't reactive.
No.
You were reflective. Did it take much editing, drafting? Oh no, tell me about the drafting. Yeah, tell me about the drafting process.
Well,
Who read it? Yeah, in the draft.
my brother.
Oh, we'll hear from the brother later.
Yeah, my brother.
Yeah.
When I began to write it, I was like, oh my gosh. I'm actually telling my story and bits of everybody else's story, and how would they feel about it. So I kind of rang my brother and said, hi, you're right, I'm writing a book. He's like, okay, I'm going to send it to you, can you read it? And he's like, okay. And he was like, do your thing in it, do it. Do what you need to do. And I was like, right, okay. And he said, you got one bit wrong though. And so he corrected a bit in there, and he was like, it's fine, just write, it's fine. So if he hadn't given me the go-ahead, I probably wouldn't have written, to be honest, because he always says to me, I'm in the book. So he's in the book, and for those who have read it or will read it, my mum's in the book, my auntie's in the book. My auntie's at the back, the Duchess, she's at the back, she's waving. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people that have been on this journey are in the book. So, but
so they gave you. So, in a sense, they gave you a blessing.
Not
blessing?
really. I
No?
think the blessing that came was my brother's, because
right.
it's like our story. So, if he had said to me, sis, you can't just allow it, mate, I would have been like, okay, but I probably would have tried to sway him to say, I need to write it. But yeah, he gave me, I think his blessing was like, yeah, get this done.
How long did it take you to write that first part?
All right. Well, the first chapter was the hardest, because that's the chapter about actually the time from leaving my mum and my brother and going into care. And the reason why, feeling a bit emotional, the reason why that was the hardest, because that was a part of the story that I blocked out, as in going from the house and then not being around what was familiar. There was no brother and there was no mum. So
that really hit me. That really, and recently when I was at a foster care panel, and you might have been there, where some potential foster carers didn't really realise the impact that there is on a child leaving their home and going to another place. And the question was asked, what preparations would you make? What would you do to try to ease, the child into home? Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So when I wrote that bit, God, I didn't.
You were the little girl.
Yeah. Because the picture on the front of the book, that's me. That's me going into care. That's me and a gentleman called Winston. He's passed away now. And in the book, I talk about how I'm just sat in the car and he's driving and no one's really saying anything. And then we get to 140 and he just says to me, "You're going to be all right." And then that was it. And then I didn't know where my brother was. And yeah, it was. But we brought up in at church. I'm like, "Well, where did you go?" I'm at so-and-so. So I'm like, "Okay." So that chapter was the hardest because I didn't talk about it. I wouldn't talk about it because I just blocked it out. But all the others, and after I wrote that chapter, I had to take some time out. I couldn't carry on writing the book. I had to just sit.
Did you start with that?
Yeah.
So you started with that and then there was the pause?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was going to ask was what was, the hardest part to write? But I think that you've told us that.
Yeah.
May I ask though, please, just say a little bit more about how the cover came about?
Yes, so I'm a creative person, for those that know, and I had this picture, this vision in my mind as to how I wanted the picture to look, and I can't draw to save my life, and I don't know any artists. So the publishers, I asked them, "Is there anybody who can do artwork?" And they said no. But the lady called Becky, she put me in touch with an illustrator, and I didn't speak to her. She doesn't live in London. I've never met her before, and I just emailed her and said, "This is what I want it to look like, and this is the description." And within an hour, she called me back, and she said, "Yeah, I can do that." And I was like, "Right, okay." And then she said, "Give me an hour," and within an hour, she sent that, and I just burst into tears because it was spot on, exactly what I wanted. And all I asked her to do just to change a few of the colours, but it was as if she was in my head. Yeah, it was as if she was right there, and that's how that picture came into being.
Did you develop strength, resilience from those experiences?
Yeah, I did, because my mum, my biological mum, she's a very strong woman, and she just works hard and does everything. And then it was not strange, but then I was placed with strong foster carers who just got up and worked really, really hard and just got on with life. I mean, if they were ill, they'd still keep working. If there wasn't much money in the house, they'd keep working. So I saw this strong way of moving forward in life.
Women?
Yeah. Yeah.
Name it.
Yeah,
women.
I've been surrounded by some really, really strong women who just got on. Not saying my foster dad wasn't strong or my biological dad wasn't strong, but I guess it was a case of everyone just got on with life. They didn't complain. I didn't really hear many people complain. One thing I didn't see, which is what I do now, I didn't hear them talk about the challenges that they faced and how to overcome them. So I think for me, that was a kind of, well, I'm 9 years old, I'm in care, so let's just get on with it. And that's the approach that I took. I just got on with it. I went to school, a new school. I went to a grammar school. I got into a new school, and I had to kind of fend for myself. My brother was in all my schools with me, and he just wasn't in this one. And then it was like college, and then university, and then just getting on. And so that was the resilient. You just got on with life.
Were you a memorable were you a memorable young woman or young girl in school?
Oh yeah.
Judith?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I was memorable in school. I guess because I come from a very jovial, my family's very naturally jovial. My cousins are at the back, so we're really, really jovial. So, and plus because I was sometimes go to school, I'm bored or thinking, or just restless within myself as to, well, where's my family, what's happening? So I just have fun at school in the way that I felt I needed to, which didn't sort of help the rest of the people who wanted to study, but in the lessons.
What were you noted for in school, Judith?
Yeah, so...
what were you... What was your claim to fame?
I could sing. I sing in assemblies. I was noted for fighting a lot.
I was trying to lead her. I've got her there now.
Yeah,
I've got her there.
yeah.
Now.
I was noted for fighting a lot, but I would say in my defence that as I said, growing up, I went to Cutlersbrook Junior School. Then what was the other one? Willow Green, and then Cutlersbrook, and then Fairfield was when he wasn't around. Well, my brother wasn't around, so it was kind of like you have to fend for yourself. Now.
You really missed him.
I did, because he's already shown people his war wounds. It wasn't that I wanted to fight. I just wanted to get on, but it was vulnerable. I was vulnerable at school. He wasn't there for me to hang out at break time. Because when we was at Cutlersbrook and Willow Green, he'd be playing football and I'd be sat by the goal, if you see what I mean, like playing, or I'd be in goal. I remember one time I went to play and I was in goal, like I'm going to be the goalie, and somebody kicked the ball and it hit me in my chest. And my brother was like, stop playing. No, my sister can't play. And so he just wasn't around. So I think he kind of had a sense. He came to see me one time when I was in my foster care placement, and he's like, you've got to start to fend for yourself now. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And he goes, if anyone picks on you, I'm not there, so you've got to learn. So he kind of taught me how to look after myself. And I don't know if it was a sixth sense, but not long after that, I got picked on at school, or people would try to tease me or make fun. So I would, in my defence, I'd say, defend myself. But I think I went a bit too far, because there was a lot of anger that came out that I didn't know was there, but it came out through the fighting. And so I would be excluded from school, be sent home often being sent home, and my foster mum coming to school to speak to the teachers on my behalf and warn me, to the point that she became a dinner lady at school. So she was a dinner lady at school, and then it so happened that I got excluded from school at lunchtimes. So I was sent home for lunchtime, and she was still the dinner lady at school, and she just... when you'd be sent home at lunchtime and you'd think, I can hang about. Nah. She'd be watching me from the dinner hall, watching to see whether I was going to the gate. And she'd say, your lunch is at home. Come back after lunch. And we lived 5 minutes from school, so I'd come back. But that was what I was known for by some of the teachers. But I was
just going to say, did you notice the singing?
Yeah.
The singing in school, the singing in assemblies,
yeah.
the religious side of things,
yeah.
the anger and the fighting, foster carer, coming in, finding a way, talking to school, coming in, being the dinner lady in school.
Yeah.
So the leading question is, who were the people that kept you on that road?
What, in school?
Yeah. Well, at that time.
Yeah. So church, there were some people at church who are not here tonight, and some have passed away. I'm laughing because I'd give trouble at church, but I wouldn't fight. I would talk back, and they'd kind of say, "Not here." So they would stand for no foolishness, even if I tried to, talk back. They'd be like, "No." So deacons who have passed away, like Deacon Campbell, those of you who remember him, and Deacon Powell, they'd really, really try. And when I was good, they'd tell me that I was doing all right. And some of the pastors that I grew up with as well, and the late Pastor Walder, he was always an advocate, because when I got arrested for fighting, and the church had to know about it, in the church I grew up in, it was you couldn't do anything in church. So I sang on the choir. I wasn't allowed to sing for... It was supposed to be a couple of months, but my pastor he kind of saw my heart and knew that I didn't want to be in the fight, but heard the circumstances. And he told the church, she can sing next week. So he put me back in the choir the following week. So he kind of helped me out there. And then in school I had Mr. Baber, my biology teacher. He was fantastic. And then I had my art teacher, which was Miss Wanless. They were the teachers I'd go to if I just was struggling throughout the school day. I'd go and sit with them.
But some of our children didn't have or don't have
Yeah.
the teachers or the pastors or the foster carers that you've named,
Yeah.
but they do have the transformed you.
Yeah.
So how did you, or why, explain, how did this idea of transformed you happen?
So I started working after I went to college, went to uni, and then started to work in the financial industry. I thought that was where I needed to be, you know, making the money, driving these...
She enjoyed the cars.
driving these corporate
Drives a good
cars,
car.
you know, the perks and like hotels when you go away for training. I thought that was it. And then I got bored really, really quickly.
That came across.
Yeah, I got so bored, like really restless. Like, what is this? I'm like, I'm making good money, I'm doing a good job, but I just got really, really bored and restless. So being a woman of faith as well, I just prayed and said, God, what is going on? I don't know what I should be doing. And then this thing called corporate social responsibility, this new thing within...
Can we say that again? No, can you say that again?
This new thing called corporate social responsibility.
Do we know what that is?
Okay.
Has it disappeared?
Well, so you tell me. So it's where organisations, but back then it was the financial banks or those great organisations would want to give back to the community. So they called it corporate social responsibility, taking care of your community. And so they started this thing where you could go into schools. So I volunteered and went into schools, and I had a look around, see what was going on, because, you know, schools, I was in schools in the 80s, this we're now in the 2000s, and I'm seeing what's happening in schools, and I'm like, what is going on here? I'm like, this is not like school when I went to school. And I just began to volunteer and go in and see things about school. And so whilst working in the financial industry, I thought that I was going to go into school to teach about financial education, because that's what I began to learn working in the financial industry. And then the credit crunch happened and I got made redundant. And but during that time, I began to write about working with young people, but I didn't know in what capacity. I didn't know it was going to be through the Transformed You. I just didn't know. And then I signed up to an agency called Sugarman, which is well known in the city. And I had a dream that I was working in a school with one of my friends who is a teacher. And then I spoke to her the following day and said to her, you know, I had a dream that I was working in a school, and you know the school that I'm supposed to be working in. And she said, oh, yeah, I've got it. But I didn't know what she was talking about. And then she said, go to Sugarman Agency and tell him that I sent you and just sign up. So I went along and spoke to the gentleman there and signed up. And I said, I have no qualifications to work in a school. I've got a law degree, I've done law, and I, you know, got my financial qualifications. And I know nothing about working in schools, but I could tell you a bit about my story. So I told him about my story, and he said to me, you'll be ideal. I've got the perfect school for you. And I was like, right, okay. It was a pupil referral unit. I walked in there in December, was it 2013, and boy, was that a baptism of fire. I saw chairs being flown. I saw kids fighting teachers. I was like, what is this? I could not believe. I said, is this a school? It's a unit, a pupil referral unit. So then I had to do my research because I didn't know anything. So research, being a law graduate, you research on the job. So I researched. I thought, oh. And then for some reason, I was like working with young people who I didn't know much about their background. But I could sense that I had to work with them. And then I would ask the staff, you know, tell me a bit about so-and-so. Why are they here and what's their background? Oh, so-and-so is in care. Right. I get it now. So I said, oh, so can I work with that person? And I never told the teachers in the school that I had a foster care background. I just wanted to, I could see the young person's traits because they were similar to mine. And I wanted to help that young person through the pupil referral unit because I didn't like her being in there, and I wanted them to get out as soon as possible. So I began to work one-to-one with her, And then she got out, and I was like, right, if this thing works in a Peru, let me see if it works in mainstream. So then I contacted Sugarman, and I said, I don't want to work in a Peru anymore. Can you put me in mainstream secondary school? And they sent me to a all-girls school in, can't remember the name, somewhere in Camden. And this is a well-to-do girls' school. And I walk in and I go into the staff room and I'm introduced to the staff, that big, more staff than it is in here. And the teacher who I'm working alongside, she says to the team, to all the school, you're just going to be working with so-and-so and so-and-so. And the whole staff room burst out laughing. Oh. And I was like, what?
It's laughing about children.
Yeah. So I said, after I left the staff room, I said, why was everyone laughing? You haven't met those two, have you? Oh. And I was like, okay. So deep down inside, I thought, right, this is a challenge. I said to the teacher, tell me about the two kids in care. Oh. 2 kids in care, and I worked my socks off with them and got them through the school system. And then I said to Sugarman, okay, right, so does this happen in primary school? Can you send me to a primary school? And they sent me to a primary school in my area. And the head teacher said, yeah, there's one boy, we can't control him and we don't know what to do and whatever. I said, can I read this file? Child in care. And so I said, I'll work with him. And I worked with him. He was one of the hardest, because primary, he was one of the hardest kids. But when I left, we were both in tears. The school didn't want me to leave. He didn't want me to leave. But he turned what the program did. It turned him around. And then as I was working in these schools, I just began to write what I was doing. I just began to write it down and write it down.
So again, the reflective process.
Yeah. And then I began to, because I worked in the financial industry, I used to hang out with a lot of business managers. And for some reason, they give me all their business manuals. Judith, you need to take this, you need to read this. And I didn't know I was going to set up a business. So I remember the business manuals that I had. I kept them at home. And I went back and picked those up and I began to, right, this is how you write a business plan. This is how you apply for funding. This is how you do this. And I just put it together. And then I said, well, what do I do next? Because there was no business mentor telling me what to do. I just had to prayerfully try and find out what I needed to do. And then I can't remember who sent me an email. One of my friends sent me an email about a course up in London run by the School for Social Entrepreneurs. And my camera lady, she was on my course. Yeah, we started that course together. And I went in and I said to them, you have to pitch to go to that school. And you can't just rock up and say, I want to be a part of this organisation. You have to pitch. So I'm thinking, oh God, I've never pitched before. But I know I can talk and I know how to write a business plan. So I sent in my business plan and sent in my application. And there were about 300 to 400 applicants. And I was shortlisted. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I went and when I sat there, chairs like this, I thought to myself, what am I doing here? Because I was seeing all these, in my mind, like people who like know exactly what they're doing, coming suited and booted, and I began to second guess myself. I guess that's the child in care mentality, I don't deserve to be here kind of thing. But before I could get trapped in that way of thinking, someone just said to me, Judith, we're ready for you. So I went in and I pitched to a board of executives, and they said to me, you can stand or sit down. And I just thought, let me sit down, because I'm just going to talk to you. I'm not really going to pitch the way that I've seen other people pitch. I'm just going to sit and have a chat. And I told them about my business idea and that I was a product of it and that it would work. And they were like, okay.
And it does work.
Yeah.
It does work.
Yeah.
We have been, I know that Barking and Dagenham has been extremely impressed by the work that you have done. And I've certainly seen it at first hand. And I was delighted also, recently Judith has joined Barking and Dagenham on their foster care panel. And it's really important because we didn't have a care leaver on the panel. So now it really bolsters and balances the panel, because you can see things from different perspective rather. Judith, moving on to another area, it's now, the Transformed You programme is set up.
Yeah.
So you work with local authorities. So how do you, systems are in place for children in care, but what have you done to try to improve the diet that the children in care receive?
Okay, so what I found when I started the Transformed You program is that there were gaps, or there weren't bridges between foster carers and the young person, or foster carers and social workers. So through the Transformed You, we bridged that gap based on the voice of the young person.
And education.
And education, I forgot, yeah. And the schools, there was this gap. So everybody sat around the table would have their own agenda, but wouldn't be listening to the child, who is at the core of what we need to be doing. So the Transformed You, we bring the program to life by saying, well, to the child, well, what do you want? And what is it that you need, and how can we help you? And they, at first, when I start working with the child or the young person, they tell me, like, I've had a mentor before, what difference are you going to make? And for one child, I remember, he said, I don't need you, bye. I was like, okay then, because I don't force the program. And I was on my way walking out, and he said, wait, come back, what'd you do again? And I'm like, oh, you want to talk to me now? and so that helps. So I'm not a social worker, I'm not the school, I'm not the foster carer, I'm me, who have the same journey, similar journeys to the young person. And also, I find that the young people, they're very disappointed or at a loss with their team of support, if that makes sense. Now, I say the team of support because the team of support is the social worker, the school, and the foster carer, and everybody else is built around that team. And sometimes the kids will say to me, I've had five social workers, they're not going to listen to you if you sit around the table with me. Or I've had a few foster care placements and they don't understand me, so I don't see what difference you're going to make. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then the school's going to exclude me anyway, so there's nothing that you can do about it. And I'm like, oh, really? And then when they see that I go to the meetings with the young person and to the school, and I sit and I kind of translate their voice in a professional way, and it gets results, the kids are like, oh, Judith, yeah, I'm not going to meet without you anymore. You've got to come to all my meetings. And they start to see the change, and then they start to engage, because it's not just about me. I get the kids to start engaging with their social worker and engaging with their foster care and engaging with the school, and not shutting off because I'm not there all the time. I get to see them like twice a week. And for the rest of the time, they live with their foster carers, and they're at schools with the teachers, and they see the social workers as often as they can. So I'm there to bridge that gap. And also, change isn't just possible for the young people, but it's change for the people that work with them, to have a different perspective of who that young person is that they're supporting.
That brings me nicely on too. So there's 3 messages I want you to think about. What message do you try to give to the schools about working with young people? What do you, through how you work, what is the message that they receive, schools?
Yeah, with regards to schools, I try to get the school to not look at the behaviour. Try to understand the child by looking at the root cause of the behaviour. So before you get that knee-jerk reaction of, oh, for example, Thomas, I don't mentor Thomas, by the way, Thomas needs to be excluded and we're kicking him out tomorrow. Okay, so why? I will contact the school or the virtual school and say, is there a reason? Do we know why? And it could sometimes be that Thomas has had contact with his mum the night before and it's just gone haywire, and they walk into school and know what they're just seeing red because mum's not being the mum that they thought she was going to be when they have contact. It could have been that, their foster carer sort of got on their nerves the morning and they've come to school in a bad mood, but no one sat and said to Thomas, what's wrong? So I try to get the schools to listen, ask the child, or give them some space, because sometimes the kids don't want to say anything straight away, but then ask the child, okay, what is going on? So rather than looking at the behaviour and wanting to manage the behaviour, try to get to the root cause and support the root cause. That's what I try to get the schools to do.
What do you say to social services?
Oh, it's the same. So social workers, it's hard for social workers, to be honest. I feel like social workers have this policy that they have to work through, like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, Linka, but sometimes we can forget that, this is a child. we're working through. All right, I'll give
But
you.
They've got legislation to follow, really.
Yeah, and that's hard. And I went to a meeting not long ago, and the social worker said to the child, so if you don't behave, you are then going to be moved out of your foster carer's home to out of the borough. And if you don't behave when we move you out of borough, we're going to put you in secure. I was like, wait, hold on a minute. I know that's your process, but ask the child, what's wrong? So instead of like sending the child how many miles away from home and then telling them you're going to go to a kind of secure unit, which is like a mini prison, and scare the child, try and ask them what's wrong.
And the foster carer, final message?
Oh, foster carers. We have some great ones. I've met some great ones in the time that I've worked with the Transformed You, and I've met some not so great ones. And I think for me, I would say to foster carers, do it for the right reasons. Yeah, please do it for the right reasons. And when you take that young person into your home, make them feel like they're a part of you, not just there for bed and board. And then when you are gone on holiday, they go somewhere else, or you've gone out for a day with your family, and the child's gone somewhere else. And then when the child comes back to you, that your child is telling the child what they missed out on. And all these examples I've experienced with the kids, and it's hard. It's heartbreaking and it's hard, because then I'm like to the child, wow, if I could just walk round to that foster carer's house right now, I would, but I can't. So I really want foster carers to really understand. And if it's not for you, please don't do it because somebody else has done it and they've done really well. Some foster carers might not be able to bond with a looked after child, and it's not just so that's not for you to do. All right, let's back up. I think that everybody has got a purpose and a calling in life. Yeah, that's what I believe. And if you're not called, if you don't know if you're called, or if the purpose that you have been given on if it's the foster care, leave it alone, because you're causing more damage than good.
Thank you, Judith. And now we're going to lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to ask before we talk to the audience and see if they've got any questions, they're just very short questions. I want you to get to know a little bit more about what Judith likes, what she does when she relaxes. So it's just, little silly little questions, really. Books or movies?
Movies.
Did you hear that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Books or movies. So movies. Hugs or kisses?
Oh, hugs.
Rural or urban?
Urban.
Comedy or mystery?
Comedy.
Dancing or singing?
Both.
At the same time. Wine or beer?
Wine.
Dark chocolate or white chocolate?
White chocolate.
Dress up or dress down? It's obvious.
Dress up.
Dress up, yeah. Numbers or letters?
Letters.
Adventurous or cautious?
Adventurous.
Thank you, Judith. Okay. Now, it's a chance for anybody in the audience to speak to Judith, to ask her a question. What I would say, though, it would be helpful, but it would be really lovely if we knew who you were. So if you would like to ask Judith a question or compliment her or make a comment, if you could give your name and just say how you know her, that would be really lovely, because then we'll have that sense of family. You've been a wonderful audience, by the way.
Yeah.
So who's going to be brave?
Jim.
Oh, Jim.
Hi, my name is Jim Dunk, and I know Judith because Marjorie knows Judith, and I was invited here very kindly tonight. But what I want to say really is, as someone who taught for 10 years in Newham, one of the things that came out of what you were saying, and this might be slightly controversial, is that what you were saying, I understand, totally applied to children in care, and I understand where that came from. But as a teacher in schools that were labelled as difficult, my feeling was, if we'd had 3 or 4 people like you talking to all the kids, they would all have benefited from it, because a lot of them were children in turmoil, and finding out what that turmoil does to them and what it does against them, I think is vitally important. And I was very taken by your descriptions of how you had worked with children. So what I'm saying is, expand the business. Let's have more of you in school.
I am. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Could you share some good news?
Yeah, well, I have expanded. So I've recruited 3 members of staff, and one of them is here tonight. Do you want to stand, Claire? Claire. So there's 2 more. So we're expanding, and we're going to keep growing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Peter.
My name's Peter. I'm Judith. I've got the honour and the hard work of pastoring. Judith, how long did it take you to write the book, and what is your favourite part of it?
It took me, I started off in April this year and finished it in September. So it was with the publishers by October. Because after I paused from the first chapter, everything just came. It was like, you'd understand this, Pastor Peter, it's like God was just downloading. So I'd be sleeping and the book chapters would be coming, and I'd have to jump out of my bed and run to my office in my house, and just type. And it just flowed after that.
Oh,
it just flowed after that. The favourite part of the book is the little episodes with my brother. The little, he pop up in the book. And yeah, those are the favourite bits of putting him in. Because I want him to tell his story, but I don't think he ever will. He won't mind me saying this, but he had 4 foster care placements and I only had 1. So I'd love one day for him to tell his story. So I put his bit in there for other people to see that, I wasn't in this journey on my own. And what I did do through the transfer, Nikki's actually come and met some of the boys that I mentor. They're like, oh, is that your brother? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And some of the girls who are into football, I'd call Nikki whilst I'm on the phone, whilst I'm with them, and they say, oh, I'm with your sister. And you'd be like, yeah, listen to everything she says, yeah. I'm like, wow, props. So that was the favourite part, just putting his story in and just showing his journey alongside mine. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I know Judith from my childhood, so we grew up on the same street.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, so I lived at number 140 and you lived at what number?
85.
Yeah.
Yes. So my question, you just mentioned mentoring boys, and my question is, how have you found that boys, as a strong woman that you are, how do you feel that boys actually relate to your experience?
Good question. They relate to the experience because the same journey is that we've been in care, so they understand that about my journey. And to them, I'm like the big sister. When I rock up, it's like Judith is the big sister. And I don't just mentor black kids, it's like white, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, across the board. The same thing is that we've all been in care. So, and they relate to me, and they talk to me about everything. I mean, every blessed thing they want to talk to me about. So, Judith, I've got a girlfriend. Really? Okay. Oh, okay. How do I deal with that one? So, yeah, they relate to the journey. I think what's similar to us, me and the boys, is that it's the journey that they relate to. And then when there's other things that I can't sort of talk to them about, I refer to my brother, get my brother on the phone. Or I have someone on my advisory board, because Margie's on my advisory board, but there's someone else on my advisory board called Duncan Williams. And Duncan Williams is a trained therapeutic counsellor, and I just bring him in and say, can you work with so-and-so for 6 months?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I combat that.
That's worked well, hasn't it?
Yeah. He's brilliant with the kids. That works. Yeah. Thanks. Is that okay,
That's very
Rachel?
good. No, very good question, actually.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when there's sometimes this idea that boys need, you know, good male role models. Yes, of course they do. But boys relate very well to women. Yeah, and sometimes we are a little bit more gentle in a way, and they want to impress us. You know, I know what it's like when I've worked in an all-boys school, you know, and that little bit of charm, yeah? So I don't think we can be quite so specific at times.
Yeah.
They need a dose of both a male and a female, or actually, let's not be gender orientated. They need the person who rocks up, as you say, who forms an attachment with them, you know, who listens to them, who they think might be cool, because you are cool.
Yeah.
Yeah? Who's in touch with their music too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it is. It's about music, interests.
Yeah. I'll give you a joke today. So I worked today. It's my birthday, but I worked and I went.
Well, of course, that sounds so much like a child. I'm not going to school today because it's my birthday. Judith, you've been hanging around with children for too long.
So I walked into school and my mentee said to everyone, he's a boy as well. It's Judith's birthday, everyone. I was like, do you have to tell everyone? And then he's an aspiring rapper. And he was like, come Judith, let's spit some bars. Now, I cannot rap to save my life. But to him, I was the business today.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
So it was music. So whilst we're rapping, I kind of got him to put his rap, to base it on his journey. And he was like, my behaviour's not good, but I'm gonna get better. I was like, yeah, that's it, yeah. And he's like, yeah, that was good, isn't it, Judith? I was like, yeah, that was brilliant.
And she went to school looking like this.
I didn't. I wish.
Can you imagine?
They would be like, Judith. So yeah, so the music, I do bring, whatever their interests are, I bring it to the session and we work around it and still get on with what we need to do in the session.
Can I ask a question? Could you explain what a typical session looks like?
Okay, so a typical session, oh gosh, it could vary. It's very young person led. So I could go into school one day and all hell could be breaking loose in that child's life. I may have an agenda, right, we're going to do this, this and this today, and it's just a shutdown. I can't do it because the child is in trauma, and so there's tissues and they're crying and they're swearing and they're cussing everybody, and then I just get them to get everything out, and then we say, okay, so what do you want to happen? So that could be a session, and a session could be, okay, we're working on a project together and we're getting all that project done in that time, and another time could be that we're just watching something on YouTube, but sometimes it's my story, hello, you're watching about me so you can understand my journey. So that's what a typical session could look like, yeah. Or I could go to school and they're wandering around the school and no one in school wants to go and get them, but they know I'm coming. So Judith will be in 5 minutes and I rock up and say, so-and-so is actually down there, they're not in their lesson, we don't know what's wrong. So I have then to traipse down to the other side of the school to get them and to bring them in and say, so what happened? So yeah, so that's what a typical day, or not a typical day, can look like.
I was also, you reminded me about the fact that Judith starts with herself. So when the children first meet her and they're introduced to her, and your first session is very much about who I am.
Yeah.
And I've noticed in school, when I've worked with young people, as a teacher, if you give them just a little bit about who you are and why you're there, and what you want to do for them, and then relate to who they are. So that's very much, and then it's about their story.
Yeah.
You know, and what their desires and wishes and needs are.
Yeah.
Punctuated by dealing with all the emotional and behavioural difficulties linked to their own journey, school and their placement.
Yeah.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Spot on.
I've been given the 5-minute warning. So, any other questions, comments? Thank you.
So, Judith,
How are you?
my name is Jules.
AKA Mystery.
AKA Mystery. And I'm disappointed to hear that when she mentioned about your sort of, whether it was mixed mystery or the other, you chose the other. And I was disappointed. But that's all right, we'll fix that later.
Yeah.
But I've known you since you were young, and your brother as a friend, and Really, I'm touched, and I want to say thank you very much for sharing your story. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better in a different way that I didn't know you before. And I know your story is going to inspire. But when you get the opportunity to advise the next Prime Minister...
love it,
topical! But when you get that opportunity to advise the next Prime Minister, what are you going to say to him in terms of what difference they need to make, his government needs to make the type of changes that you talked about?
Okay, that's a brilliant question.
Yeah, excellent.
Brilliant
Yeah.
question.
Thank you.
And I'll give you a bit of, before I answer that, Julian was like one of my security guards when I was growing up. So my brother wasn't always around, so if Julian saw anything that was wrong or anything that was going off, Julian, Tubbs, Barney...
You mean he was your protector?
Yeah, they were like...
As opposed to a security guard. I was thinking, God...
I'd call them security. Yeah. So they were like, my brother would be like, you go and find my sister, and they'd come down and look after me. So Julian, thank you so much for jumping in. And what would I say? So in the book, there's a chapter that says messages to our Prime Minister and to the Department of Education and the Children's Commissioner and Ofsted and all those people that work. And the chapter is asking them to make the changes that need to be made in terms of setting down law that needs to be led by the voice of the young person. Because in Scotland, they've done it. And I think to myself, if they can do it in Scotland, we can do it here. And I want them to set law down in place. It's binding because, as we know, Prime Minister changes so often. And every Prime Minister comes with their own new agenda. So I want it to be law so that whoever comes in or goes out, that law for children in care it stays. And it becomes a working document as well. So any changes with regards to the times that we're living in can be added to that document, because young people nowadays, they're getting involved in a lot of things, and we need to adapt how we support them. So that's what I would say to the incoming Prime Minister, male or female, we don't know who's going to get in. I'd say sit with us to help us, put a law in place so that it can be led by the children in care and to show you or help you to know what it is that we need the government to do, in every area, like for social workers, for foster carers, for the school, because it won't just be about the young person in care, it will be how all these bodies can support these young people and how we then can support foster carers, schools and social workers to do the job that needs to get them. But I want it to be law. I don't want it to be some wishy-washy document. It has to be binding and stay in, irrespective of which Prime Minister goes in or goes out. That's what I would say.
Time for one last question.
My brother, yay!
Or comment.
Okay, so the books come out, and you send it to Mum,
Yeah.
Dad,
Yeah.
brother-in-laws,
Yeah.
etc. Dad is probably, yeah, okay, Dad's pretty much laid back,
Very.
not much rattles, but can you, if it's okay, can you share how Mum's reaction was? I'm with you on this one.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
She wasn't happy. Yeah. At first, she just wasn't happy because, as I said, I'm telling everybody's story to a certain degree, but not telling everything.
Measured.
Yeah. And I made sure that I didn't tell everything. I just said what I could in a respectful way. Because I wanted it to help other people. So I didn't want to give people like the Jeremy Kyle show in my book, peer drama. Yeah, this happened and they said this. No, I wanted to say it in a way that it was gonna help other people understand and heal through the process as well. And what was amazing about my mum's response, at first she was like, no, no. But then I don't know, after a while, I don't know what happened. She called and she just said, I'm really sorry for everything I put you kids through. And
It's okay, darling. It's okay.
why do you ask that question?
I think it was a very strong and powerful question. Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me,
Thank you.
yeah. So for me, when she said that, it was like wow. I've never heard my mum apologise for anything. We know mum, right? She's not backing down, Sonia. You know, she's right to the. Yeah, she's like, what's that? I'm not wrong. I've been through, and I wasn't discounting her journey. You know, mum's been through a lot. I mean, for mum's journey, and wow, you see, my mum's really. She's a fighter. My mum's a fighter, and to move to another country and work so hard. My mum's even been given an honorary doctorate. How do you do that? So in the state of Miami, she's like, wow. In the state of Fort Lauderdale, sorry. So for her to actually call back and say that she's really sorry, it was like, wow, that's God. And that was healing for me, and I think for this one here as well, because some things I wrote in the book, we didn't think that she'd remember, and then as she's read a few things, she was like, yeah, I remember that day, and the days when she left. That's what I blocked it out because I didn't think she'd remember it. I didn't know that he remembered it. The day that she completely left the UK. And she remembered and she said she's sorry. And that for me was like, wow, thanks, Mum. So whilst we don't see her on a regular basis, and whilst, you know, yeah, that was Mum's response. Dad, my brother's right. I spoke to my dad, said, yeah, you wrote a book, well done. I don't know if Dad will even read it. I really don't know. But one thing about my dad, though, I remember when I was ill and I came out of hospital, I don't know, my dad rang me and said to me, your life is going to really inspire lots of people. And I was like, where did that come from? I've just come out of hospital. I've been ill for 2 weeks and it was touch or go. And my dad's saying to me, you're going to inspire lots of people. I was like, right, okay, Dad, where did that come from? Hello. But, and then my foster parents, like Mrs. Law, she passed away, so she's no longer with us. But my foster dad, he had 2 strokes in the space of 7 days last month. And I spoke to him on Monday, and he's like, I've got the book, and I'm so proud of you. I haven't read it yet.
That's lovely.
I haven't read it yet, but I've got it. You're doing well. Well done, well done. So it was nice. Yeah. And then my foster brother, John, who couldn't make tonight, he was like crying. Everybody's like crying. Yeah, and then my auntie at the back, Duchess, could you please stand up? Yeah, my auntie. Yeah. She's my mum's sister, and I was round her house the other day, and she's holding the fort for us kids over here. Yeah, she'll come out to anything that we do, and she's really, really supportive. So yeah, family. I didn't know how it was how my family was gonna take to it, but they've come. They're helping.
So on that note, please may I say a special thanks to both of you. Also a thanks to your foster parents, to your school teachers that made a difference, to the Duchess at the back, to the lady behind me, to your mum and dad for bringing you into the world so that you were able to tell your story, and to everybody here who continues to make a difference in their life, to people who are vulnerable and need our love and care, but also we all need to be loved, don't we? Yes, we do need to be loved. So I think in the world that we've got, in our difficult times, definitely. I suppose every generation feels it's difficult, and there are different challenges. Yeah, but it's been a privilege for me to be here tonight.
Thank you.
And I do feel part of a family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the transformed you, growing from strength to strength.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, and we'll keep those new girls in order. You'll be able to tell them, won't you? Yes. And God bless to everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.